Back, everybody, to the Finding Genius video series. We have a very special guest today, Mayor Francis Suarez. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Kunal. It's a pleasure to be with you. And I don't know if I'm a genius, but it's a cool name for the podcast. That's for
Thanks.
sure.
Yeah, no, you definitely are a genius, and everybody's been talking about what you've been doing for the Miami ecosystem, and that's become a national sort of phenomenon. But before we get into that and talk about that, could you share a bit more about your childhood in Miami, just to give a sense of background?
Yeah.
What most people outside of Miami probably don't know is that your father was also the mayor of Miami
He was.
for 4 terms. So maybe some of the problems that
Yes.
he was solving back then, what inspired your run for mayorship, just going into some of the background.
Yeah. So it kind of have to start with him, right, and with my mom, who were both Cuban exiles. My mom came when she was 6. My dad came when he was 12, right around the same time after the communist Castro Revolution in Cuba, and they came to this country with nothing, And my dad was the ninth of 14 kids, was able to get a scholarship at the high school level, at the university level, and at the graduate school level. My grandfather, his dad, was a dean of the engineering college at Villanova University in Cuba, so he was an academician. So I was very blessed to have that sort of engineering, mathematics, finance background on the one side, and then my mother is the dancer and the social butterfly. So I kind of got her social graces on the other side. So I was very blessed by their union. I'm the oldest of 4. I have 3 younger sisters, and I was elected to the council. I was a councilman for 8 years in 2009 in a very, very, hotly contested election. I went into a runoff, and I ended up winning by 262
Wow.
votes. So I often tell people 2 things. One is, um, if 131 people would have changed their mind, I may not be talking to you, right? And I also tell them that I emphasize that you should go out and vote because my race was, I think, 15,000 votes cast, and it came down to a very, very small fraction. So every single vote counts, and I just want to emphasize
Interesting.
that.
And what was the platform that you were running on? Was that very much about building a technology community, or was it completely different?
So ironically, back then in '09, the platform really was about some of the basics, right? Low crime, low taxes, and building affordable housing, right? Um, which we accomplished. I mean, as a commissioner, I did all 3 of those things. I brought in a gunfire detection system that tells me every time, as mayor, every time that a gun is fired in my city with GPS precision instantly.
Wow.
So I know instantly. So it's incredible. So I did use technology as a force multiplier and as a way to provide better services. And I've been trying to build a technology ecosystem for the better part of 10 years. It's been like a startup without VC money. So it's been a slow build. And then all of a sudden we got a VC infusion, and we just had this J curve moment that has been explosive since I put out the "How can I help" tweet.
Right.
And so I just feel really honored and blessed to be the mayor at this moment when everything seems to be coming together. It's just really rewarding, frankly, all the hard work.
Interesting. I just interviewed Delian as well, who I believe you did the tweet with.
He's the one that got it all started, man. He started the ball.
Right. So when you're
He's
when you're
amazing.
leading this kind of mass exodus from other cities into this entrepreneurial hub in Miami, what does that entail? So what is it? How do you foster that community? What are the ingredients you need in order for it to grow quickly?
A few things. I think the first thing is our messaging is the opposite of the messaging of the cities that they're fleeing from. The cities that they're fleeing from are telling their residents, "We don't want you here. We think you're the problem." You know what I mean? And our message couldn't be any more radically different. Our message is, "We absolutely want you here. We not only don't think you're the problem, we think you're the solution. We think that a private company does not deserve to be blamed for all societal ills, nor is it required to solve all societal ills. We want high-paying jobs in our community. If we have income inequality, which every major city has in America, and it's the challenge of my generation, how are you going to solve that problem without creating high-paying jobs? I mean, how do you create wealth? How do you create upward mobility without creating high-paying
Right.
jobs? So I just don't see how or why a city would push away people that are innovating and creating high-paying jobs. I think what you have to do is you have to bring those people in. You have to work with them. You have to make them more part of the social fabric. You have to get them involved in philanthropy. You have to get them involved, which, by the way, they all want to do. Oftentimes, the reason why they're not doing it is, frankly, it's a lack of engagement. The public officials don't seem to be engaging them, don't seem to be picking up the phone and calling
Right.
them, messaging with them. Because one of the great things about being a mayor of a major city is you can meet with just about anybody. You know what I mean? So, there really isn't an impediment to getting connected with somebody. I've been connected, with the most amazing people in the last 2 months that I would have never thought in a million years that I could have connected with, including Elon Musk
Right, right.
last week. Just so many incredible people. So I think sometimes maybe mayors underappreciate their role or their value in terms of really fostering a connection between the public sector and the private sector so that it benefits all their residents.
And can you share a bit about what happened in your conversation with Elon Musk before I go back to the
Sure, of
question?
course. Yeah, it was about a 30-minute conversation. He's an amazing guy, as you guys can see, as everyone can see, in terms of from his videos. Very, very normal. What was interesting about him, a few things. One of them was he said, I've got a few bucks, so I'm not really doing this for the money. And I think, there is a point and I know it sounds kind of like maybe unbelievable to some people, right? But when you get to a point where you're worth $188 billion, your money, your motivation is not necessarily money, right? The marginal dollar is not going to do much for you, right? It's not going to make your life any better, right? In terms of wealth. So the question you have to ask yourself, I presume, is, and what he sort of focused on is, how do I have the biggest impact? What can I do that has the biggest impact? And he was saying was like, he's like, look, the reason why we're doing this is because this is the craziest thing. I never heard anybody say this, because we want to make people happy.
Right.
But that's it. He's like, we're not trying to make a bunch of money. We're not here to, we just want to do something that's innovative, that's going to increase happiness in cities. And we want to start small with a project that can have a high impact. It could be kind of like a proof of concept. And I'm going to be the the president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors beginning in January. So what I relate to him was like, look, if we can do it successfully in Miami, this is something we may be able to scale nationally as a national program. So it was just a fun conversation. You have to kind of check yourself a couple times and thinking, I am literally speaking to the richest person on
Yeah.
earth. This is actually
Right.
happening.
I'm doing that.
And kind of
Right.
keep your heart in your chest. You know what I
Right.
mean? And like, not be too nervous. Pretend like you've been there. You know what I mean? Like if it like this is no big deal. When of course you're like, oh my God, this is really happening.
So you make a very kind of logical approach on why communities and cities should foster a tech ecosystem, but how do you get, you said you're the mayor of Miami, how do you get the entire city and the different bodies to work together to get your vision accomplished of bringing so much tech there and moving fast enough to become attractive for VCs and startups and everybody to move in the ecosystem?
It's probably a little easier said than done, but I would say it's been extremely intentional and a ferocious pace that I've been at. I mean, in the month of December, I tweeted 800 times. I got 27 million impressions on my tweets. So I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it is, frankly, and I have to admit it, it's not all me. You know what I mean? We have created an ecosystem that has been perfectly positioned for this moment. And then people often ask me, well, what everything that happened along this journey was a straw on the camel's back. And I think the straw that broke the camel's back was COVID. You know what I mean? When you had our city relatively open versus other cities very, very closed, and then the remote work, which untethered people to their physical location, and you could keep your job, right, wherever it was, in New York or in LA, but actually be somewhere
Right.
else. I think it freed people up to say, okay, I'm not going to lose my job by trying to move somewhere else. Let me move to Miami and check it out because everyone's talking about it. And then when they got here, I think they were super pleasantly surprised by the density and the intensity and the quality of the people that are here. And they were like, wait a second, this is something special. And then, of course, once that becomes public, you get I call it the FLOMO, the FLOMO, right, which is the combination of the flywheel and FOMO effect, right? The FlyMo, right? It's FlyMo, right? So it's the flywheel effect of, every person that comes brings more people, and then the FOMO effect of people saying like, wait a second, the fear of missing out, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to be missing this. This is, everybody's there. So it's sort of success that breeds success. And at that point, what you try to do is kind of stay out of the way, don't screw it up.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you want to work on some back-end stuff. We created something called Venture Miami for the first time ever, which is a team of the best and the brightest in our city, whether it's from education or from downtown development or economic development or venture capitalists and residents. I have a VC in residence now. So I created this entire back-end so that when somebody calls me and says, hey, I need to know what to do, boom, I can pass them off to Venture Miami, and they can get them started, make it easy, be as concierge as possible. So that's a process that we're going through so that we can get as many people to entrench in this moment.
Right. And what sort of startups do you want to see people building in Miami? And this might relate to an article you wrote with Ban Ki-moon on environment and what Miami was doing to defend itself against climate change. Could you talk a little bit about that article? And maybe it's related, maybe it's not, but some of the startups that you want C founders building in the city.
Oh, I would love to have environmental tech, initiatives. We have health tech, we have gov tech. We're even seeing stuff in entertainment technology. I mean, there's no limit. It's not like I'm saying I want to, particularly be in one versus the other, because technology is a sub-industry of all the industries. But the article with Banqi was mostly about adaptation and resiliency. And what happens is, the climate change phenomenon, if you will, really comes down to two things. One is you got to prepare yourself for what's here and what's coming, which is adaptation. You have to adapt, and we are adapting by implementing a bond that our residents approved, which is called Miami Forever. And then the second part is you have to show leadership, right? To me, and we're going to show leadership because we're now a member of C40, and we are unveiling our carbon neutrality plan in Earth Day this year by 2050. So we are demonstrating to the world that, hey, we're not just going to talk a good game. We're actually going to do things in our city to get us to carbon neutrality.
Interesting. And you were also, another thing that people might not know is that you were the second person in Miami that was diagnosed with COVID. Could you talk a bit more about coming back from that and how you've managed the city through this entire thing while also building out the tech ecosystem, how the health systems responded to it, where things stand right now?
It's been a lot of work. I thought I was going to get a break when I got COVID. I thought I was going to be a 2-week vacation, but it turned out to be the busiest 2 weeks. I actually did, I think from like March 13th, which is the day that I was diagnosed, until like today, I've done like 290 national television interviews, and international. So it's been a pretty much a whirlwind of publicity, if you will, and trying and potentially being the face of it, at least at the beginning. Thankfully, we have this virtuality of our world now where you could basically be anywhere and do anything. And I also was very fortunate that I got a very mild case. I mean, this is something that if you're in the later part of your life, it can be a killer. And even for some young people, it has been a killer. So, it's not something to be taken lightly.
And so I know we're running out of time, but just to wrap it up, could you give us a sense of what your broader vision for Mayor Francis Suarez is? I mean, where does all of this go for you? And you've been interacting with folks such as Peter Thiel and Keith Raboy and kind of the broader tech community. And also on top of that, what advice would you have for Andrew Yang, who's also a tech insider now running for Miami, the mayor of Miami, mayor of New York?
So the first question is, what's my vision? And my vision is, I think people maybe scoff at it or maybe laugh at it. They certainly would have laughed at it 2 months ago. But I think right now it's to be the most globally competitive city on the planet. We feel that the confluence of, VC money and founders and product designers and engineers coming from Silicon Valley, plus the hedge funds and the PEs that are coming from New York, have never aggregated in the same place. It's never happened before. The confluence of all that capital, cross-pollinating, has an undefined limit. And I think we have the ability because of our geo-position, right? You can't fake our geography, because you can take basically a direct flight anywhere in the US, anywhere in South America, anywhere in Europe, anywhere in the Middle East, soon probably Asia. We're probably one of the most centrally located and connected cities in the world. So I think that when you put that all together and you look at our growth envelope, we have the ability to grow 10x in terms of our physical landscape. I think Miami has the potential to emerge as the most powerful, I shouldn't say powerful because that's kind of a dirty word, but the most influential and the most important, and potentially the city where you can build the most transformational companies in the world. That's our goal.
That's great.
And the reason why that's our goal, by the way, it's not just because we want to be powerful. It's because we want to give the children of our community that have grown up here, every single child, an opportunity to be successful. And so our brand is Miami Forever, but then it's also Miami for everyone. In terms of Andrew Yang, who I have not met yet, but I've heard a lot of good things about, my advice to him is going to be tough, right? Like in the sense that I think he, when I was elected in 2009, I got elected by 262 votes, like I told. And the reason why the margin was so narrow was because I didn't tell people what they wanted to hear. I told them what they needed to hear. And so what happened was I barely got elected, right? And then all the people that saw happen what I said was going to happen then came back to me and said, oh, okay, we get it now. And so then I got elected when I ran for mayor by 86%.
Wow.
So I went from getting elected by 51.5% as a councilman, by the way, winning 2 re-elections without opposition because I built my credibility, and then winning my mayor's race by 86%. So my advice to him would be, listen, you have to give your residents some tough medicine, right? And the tough medicine is you've got to reduce taxes. There's just absolutely no way. If you do not reduce taxes, New York, I don't care how special it is,
Right.
it's going to wither away and die. You know what I mean? It's just supply and demand. It's the law of economics. People have choices, and they will move to a sunny, exciting place that they no longer feel like they have to be tethered to New York in a physical sense. When they have all the capital, all those companies are coming here. You know, Blackstone, you know, JP, Goldman. I mean, they're all coming to Miami. So why would anybody stay in New York unless something fundamentally and dynamically changes? And I think it's going to be very difficult because I don't know enough about New Yorkers per se to know that whether that's an argument that will be convincing to them.
It is pretty convincing. So hopefully I'll see you there soon. Well,
Well,
thank you so much,
you
Mayor
got it.
Suarez. I appreciate the time.
You got it, Kunal. Thank you.